You're all good.
All right, thank you so much. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much to the South Florida Wildlife Center for hosting me today. I'm so excited to talk to you about the county's sea turtle program today. My name is Stephanie Roach. I am an environmental project coordinator here with the Broward County Natural Resources Division. I think some of you may have tuned into my colleague Samantha Jarvis's presentation last month about manatees and mangroves. So hopefully I'll give you guys some new tidbits about another awesome critter in Southeast Florida, our sea turtle. And so we'll talk about the different types of sea turtles today and kind of wrap up with how you can help our sea turtles here in South Florida. So let's go ahead and get started. So I always love starting my presentations with a little Sea Turtles 101, just to give you some good background. So sea turtles are ancient marine reptiles. They've been around since before the time of the dinosaurs. So we're talking about, 100 million years or more, super, super old, which means that they have very strong instincts, which we'll talk about a little bit later. They are marine animals, so they live in the ocean, only emerging on land when they're females to lay their nests. And for males, they're really only on the nesting beach when they're hatchlings, when they're little bitty turtles. So really only leaving the ocean to lay their eggs as females. And they are reptiles. So some characteristics of reptiles, as many of you probably know, I hope, volunteering with the South Florida Wildlife Center, you should know that they are cold-blooded, they have scales, lay eggs, and breathe air. So like I mentioned, sea turtles reside in the ocean and lay their nests on beaches. The nesting season here in Broward County officially starts on March 1st and officially lasts through October 31st. And I say officially because sea turtles don't have calendars. And so sometimes they nest a little bit before March 1st, which has happened in years past. And sometimes we have nests that are still incubating on the beach beyond October 31st. But the official published nesting season is March 1st through October 31st for us here in Broward. The nests take about 2 months to hatch once they are laid on the beaches. And hatchling turtles use light to find the ocean after they hatch. And so we'll touch on a few of these things in a little bit more detail as we go along in the presentation this afternoon. So I wanted to touch a little bit on the legal protections for sea turtles. So again, as many of you probably know, I hope, all species of sea turtles are protected under federal law. That's the U.S. Endangered Species Act of 1973. They're also additionally protected under Florida law, under Florida statutes, and it's called the Marine Turtle Protection Act. And I have a little excerpt of that act on your screen here. But in short, it says that a person cannot disturb, destroy, sell, harass marine turtles, their nests, or their eggs. So sea turtles are very strongly protected in the state of Florida. Every single species is protected. So in order to work with them, you have to have a very special permit that's issued by the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission. So our program has that permit. So keep that in mind. People can't just have sea turtles in a bucket driving around, driving around the beach in their own car. Got to have a special permit to work with them and to have them in your possession. So that's where we come in with our program. So if you guys ever see a sea turtle in danger, you can call us because we have those the correct permits in place, and we can help you out and try to troubleshoot, what's going on. If a sea turtle gets hooked at a pier, or if one is found in someone's swimming pool, if they live near the beach, we can assist with that. So there are multiple legal protections for sea turtles in the state of Florida. So next, the importance of sea turtles. I mean, I hope I don't have to convince this audience that sea turtles are important, but just in case somebody had some doubts in their brains, sea turtles are very important ecologically. Number one, they are good for population control of a lot of different things in the ocean. So certain species of sea turtles, for example, love to munch on seagrass, kind of like our manatees, which Sam talked to you about last time. So green sea turtles in particular will exclusively eat algae and seagrass as they grow to be adult turtles. So they keep those seagrass beds nice and trim and actually promote more growth of seagrass. So really important ecologically for seagrass beds. The second thing that they're really good at controlling is jellyfish populations. And we'll go into this in a little bit more detail in a minute, but certain species of sea turtles exclusively eat jellyfish. But I'll tell you a turtle secret. every single species of sea turtle loves to eat jellyfish. And so they control jellyfish populations by eating them. So if any of you are divers or snorkelers, or you just like to spend some time swimming at the beach, you know, jellyfish can be pretty pesky if there's a bloom nearby. So sea turtles help keep those populations in check. Lastly, for us in South Florida, sea turtles are really important as an ambassador to the ocean. So this is a picture of the Hollywood Water Tower just off of 95 and I think Sterling Road, no, sorry, Sheridan Street. And, you know, sea turtles just really serve as an ambassador for us here in Southeast Florida. Many cities have on their logos a picture of a sea turtle. I think Hollywood, Florida has a picture of a sea turtle in their logo. So really important ambassadors to the ocean and to the environment in general. People love sea turtles. They've got those really big eyes and they're just, you know, so easily lovable. So they're a really important animal for us to help keep alive and, you know, to keep people wanting to come to Florida to see sea turtles thriving. So really important for us economically, even here in Florida. So now let's talk about the 7 species of sea turtles in the world. Yes, there are only 7 species of sea turtles. So as a sea turtle biologist, my job is pretty easy if you ask me. I have friends who are bird biologists who know hundreds and hundreds of species of birds, and they can identify them just with a flap of their wings or a chirp out of their beaks. I have colleagues here at the county who work with plants, and they know thousands of species of native Florida plants. I only have to know 7 species of sea turtles. So my job's pretty easy most days. If that wasn't easy enough, 2 of these species don't even nest in Southeast Florida. So that would be the olive ridley and the flatback. So those 2 species at the bottom right-hand side of your screen are exclusive to the Pacific Ocean. I shouldn't say exclusive anymore because we actually did have a couple of olive ridley turtles strand. They got sick and stranded on Florida beaches a few years ago, so almost exclusively in the Pacific, but they don't nest here, so I exclude them from this slide. So that just leaves me 5 sea turtles that I need to know pretty well. And if that wasn't easy enough, the hawksbill and the Kemp's ridley, the remaining 2 on the bottom of your screen, they also don't nest exclusively in Florida. Hawksbills nest in the Caribbean. Kemp's ridleys tend to nest in Mexico and parts of Texas. So we really don't see them that often on our nesting beaches in Florida. We see them in very small numbers, and they do swim through Florida waters because they are Atlantic species, but I don't see them on the nesting beach, and that's what our program does. So I also exclude them from this part of my little talk. So that leaves me just 3 species of sea turtles that I have to know very, very well. And I think I do. So that leaves us the loggerhead, green turtle, and leatherback turtle. So we'll talk about each one of these species in a little bit more detail so you can get to know them too. So first up is our leatherback sea turtle. And please don't tell the other sea turtle species, but this species is hands down my favorite. I did some work with them before coming to the county on the nesting beach up in Juno Beach. And it just never got old seeing them. They're really cool. They seriously look like dinosaurs. They have long, lanky flippers, which I'm pretty tall and have pretty lanky limbs too. And so I think I just resonate with this species a lot. And I just think they're really cool. So leatherbacks are the largest existing species of sea turtle that we have on Earth today. They can reach 6 feet in length and weigh over 2,000 pounds, is close to the record size of a leatherback turtle, which is a huge turtle. So they are called leatherbacks because their back is soft and a little pliable and leathery, unlike the other turtle species that have a hard shell. So these leatherbacks have that soft and pliable shell because they dive deeper than any other species of sea turtle. And what they're looking for when they dive really deep down in the ocean is jellyfish. So leatherback turtles are the species I mentioned earlier that eat exclusively jellyfish their whole entire lives. Just like this turtle in the upper right-hand corner is munching on a lion's mane jellyfish, these turtles grow to be 2,000 pounds eating nothing but jellyfish, which is crazy if you think about it, because jellyfish are mostly made of water. And they have really very little nutritional content at all. So it's pretty amazing that they grow to be that big eating something that's mostly water. So when I give a similar presentation like this to school kids, I say that's like us trying to grow big and strong, sustaining and eating nothing but popcorn. So leatherback turtles have to eat a lot of jellyfish in order to grow to be the size that they are. So because their diet is exclusively gelatinous zooplankton, is pretty much what a jellyfish is, right? They have this special adaptation in their mouth called papillae. And you can see a picture of this in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. It's like these spiky projections that are all over the inside of the leatherback turtle's mouth and down into the esophagus. And what those papillae do is they keep the slippery, slimy jellyfish inside of the turtle's mouth so it doesn't come back out its mouth when they're trying to eat it. So I know that picture looks like a movie out of Alien or something, but that is a leatherback turtle and that is the inside of its mouth. So pretty cool that they have this special adaptation to do that. So we see leatherbacks on our nesting beach, usually early in season. These are the first nesters to come up on our nesting beaches in Broward to lay their eggs. So typically, like I said, sometimes these girls surprise us and come up in February, but more often than not, March is when they start arriving, and then we'll see them nesting through about June. So this year we have 26 leatherback nests laid that were laid on our Broward County beaches so far in 2022. And really that's probably our final number. I don't think we'll see any more leatherbacks since it's already August. So 26 nests, which is pretty average for us. I'm happy with that number this year. So next up, we have our loggerhead sea turtle, and these turtles are the second species usually to arrive in Broward. They'll come up and start nesting right around April, and we're still seeing a few loggerhead nests trickling in here through August. So that's pretty typical for them. They are our most common nesting species in Broward County in the whole state of Florida. Florida is arguably the #1 nesting spot for loggerhead turtles in the entire world. So we are such an important rookery for this species. So we have to make sure that this species is doing well here, because that means that globally it should be doing well also. If we keep our numbers up, then that means globally we can try and keep those other numbers up too. So loggerhead turtles are named loggerheads because some really bright biologists way back in the day said this turtle's head is so big it looks like a log. So biologists are not very creative when they name things. That should give you a little hint about what's to come with our next species as well. But that's why loggerheads are named loggerheads. So their large head is full of muscle that powers their jaw to eat things like lobster, which this turtle in the upper right-hand corner is chowing down on, a nice Florida spiny lobster. They'll also eat things like conch, which are those big shells, like in the movies that you see people blowing into, that's a conch shell. Sea turtles, loggerhead sea turtles will just bite that conch shell in half, eat the snail that lives inside and go on its merry way. So anything with a hard shell, these turtles love to eat. So trust me when I say you don't want to get bitten by even a smaller loggerhead turtle, because it will hurt and it could take your finger off. So in comparison, their brains are very, very tiny, and we'll talk about why that can be a problem a little bit later. But just keep in mind that sea turtles are very instinctive, which I think I mentioned before. But that's why they're called loggerhead turtles, because they're big head that's full of muscle. So these turtles are considerably smaller than our leatherback turtles. Loggerhead turtles only weigh about 300 pounds and can only grow to be about 3 to 3.5 feet in length. So I know I'm saying only, it's still a very large turtle, but compared to our leatherbacks, these turtles are the smallest species that we see here in Broward County nesting on the beaches. So I mentioned that this is our most common nesting species, and so far this year, we've seen 2,873 loggerhead nests laid on our beaches. And to give you perspective, we monitor about 24 miles of beach. So that's a pretty decent amount of nests. Again, that's pretty good numbers for this year. We're still waiting for the final count because we're still in the middle of season. So we'll wait and see what our final numbers are for this species in another couple of months. So lastly, we have our green turtle. And if I was live with you guys in person, I would be calling on you and bothering you to tell me why they're called green turtles. But because we're online today, I'll just give you the answer. So spoiler alert, they're not called green turtles because they are green on the outside. guys can see from these pictures, with the exception of the one on the bottom, that one always confuses the school kids. They go, that one's green. I know it's green, it's lighting from underwater photography, but you can see the picture on the left there. These turtles are kind of gray on the outside. Green turtles are actually green on the inside. And the reason for that, which I mentioned earlier, they eat nothing but seagrass and algae during their adult life. They are exclusively herbivores whenever they grow to be a certain size, and it turns their body fat green because they eat so much seagrass and algae. So that's pretty cool. That's also, unfortunately, the reason why they were hunted back in the day and used for things like turtle soup and cooking, is because their meat is apparently it's so good because they're herbivores as adults. It's kind of equivalent to why people eat cows, is because they eat an herbivorous diet. So that's unfortunately why green turtles were hunted, was because of their meat. But again, now there are protections in place. And so we're now seeing an abundance of green turtles nesting on the beaches in Florida, which is awesome. So green turtles are kind of our middle ground as far as size goes for our nesters. They can grow to be about 400 pounds and are about 4 feet long. So a really interesting short story about green turtles in Florida. So right around 2013, we started seeing a huge increase in the number of green turtle nests that were being laid in Florida, and even locally here in Broward. So every other year, we were starting to see this huge spike in green sea turtle nesting, and then the following year, it would kind of go back down to normal. But the last 2 years, they've been just kind of slightly above average, but not quite as big as those really, really high years. And, I'm talking, they would lay about 800 nests in a high year and only lay about 100 nests in a low year. So really big variation going on. We still don't know what's happening because, that was only 9 years ago. And these turtles take a long time to mature. They don't mature until they're about 25 or 30 years old. And so for us to assess population trends like that, we need a long-term data set. So we're still figuring out what's going on. But for now, this year, we have 294 green turtle nests in Broward, which is pretty good. I'll take that this year. That was probably around the same number that we had last year, but I'm fine with that. I think that's still a really good number. So we'll just wait and see what these green turtles keep doing in the upcoming years. But they're our last nester to close out our nesting season. They usually start nesting right around May, and they close out the season. So they'll nest through about late August, early September. So these turtles are the reason why sometimes we have nests that what we say overwinter. So we have, like holiday turtle nests that are still out there incubating after the new year, sometimes even, so well into the off season, but we'll see what happens this year. So now a little bit more about our program. We are the Broward County Sea Turtle Conservation Program. Our program is funded by the Broward County Board of County Commissioners, and we contract the work to Nova Southeastern University. So those are the guys and girls that are riding down on the beach on their ATV or in their little beach golf cart every single morning during nesting season, monitoring the beach for sea turtles. We also have various volunteer groups in Broward County that are not formally part of the Broward County Sea Turtle Conservation Program, but they're still very important, super impactful what they're doing out there. So these volunteer groups, like I said, I think there's 3 in Broward. They're doing really important work out there at nighttime. They are monitoring the nests to make sure that the hatchling turtles go the right way when they hatch. So those guys have the appropriate permits from the state to be doing the work that they're doing. So like I said, they're still very important and impactful to our program. So I always like to acknowledge them when I talk about the program during this time. So what are we doing during our program? Well, I've already mentioned to you multiple times when sea turtle nesting season is. So March 1st through October 31st, you're going to be saying it over and over again in your head like a mantra. But during that time, we are driving down the beach looking for clues that sea turtles have been on the beach. So like I said, you may see us in our little beach golf cart looking for evidence of sea turtles. And some of what that evidence looks like is this. So these are tracks that sea turtles leave in the sand. So just like people, sea turtles leave tracks in the sand. So people leave footprints, sea turtles leave tracks in the sand. And some of these tracks honestly just look like a big tractor drove up out of the ocean, made a big mess on the beach, and then drove right back into the water. That's the best way I can describe these tracks. So from left to right, we have the leatherback turtle. So remember, leatherbacks are the largest species that we have nesting. So their track can exceed 7 feet in length. I've seen people lay across a leatherback track and their head and toes do not touch the outside of the tracks at the same time. So when I'm training people, if you can't put both feet at the end of the tracks at the same time, it's probably a leatherback turtle. So a huge track. They also crawl with both flippers at the same time. So they leave these nice parallel flipper marks in the sand. That's characteristic of a leatherback. So that's our track on the left. The track in the middle there is from the loggerhead turtle. You can see this track is quite different. Number one, it's smaller. So remember, loggerhead turtles about 3 feet long. So their track, doesn't really get much wider than about 2 to 3 feet. They also crawl with one flipper and then the other flipper. So they leave comma-shaped alternating flipper marks in the sand. And hopefully you can see that pattern here in the picture. So that's how we know that our loggerheads have arrived when we see this track on the beach. And then lastly, on the far right, we have our green turtle track, which you may think looks a little similar to the leatherback track, and you're absolutely right. So a few ways we can distinguish the green turtle from the leatherback turtle track is number one, it is smaller. So you can straddle that green turtle track pretty much with no problem. 1 foot on one side and 1 foot on the other side. So it's a smaller track because it's a smaller turtle. Their nesting site also looks a teeny bit different, which, we train our surveyors to identify those kind of characteristics, but they do crawl with those parallel flipper marks, just like the leatherback turtle. Another clue that tells us it's a green turtle and not a leatherback turtle is timing. So remember, green turtles nest later in the season, and leatherbacks are nesting typically earlier in season. So that's how we can tell the difference between the tracks and how we know who was on the nesting beach. Now let's talk about what these turtles did on the nesting beach, because that's another important part of what we do. So what we're looking at is the entire track as a whole. And so you might remember from the previous slide, these are from loggerhead turtles. You can see that nice alternating flipper gait that looks like little comma-shaped flipper marks. The picture on the left is what we call a non-nesting emergence, or if you don't want to be fancy today, you can call it a false crawl like we do. So a false crawl is when the turtle comes up onto the beach and then just turns right back around and doesn't lay any eggs. Non-nesting emergence. So this turtle simply U-turned. Sometimes they'll do a little bit of exploratory digging. That makes things a little bit more challenging for us, but this one was very simple. So sometimes we see false crawls. That happens about as often as these turtles will nest, and so it's common. The picture on the right is what we are looking for when we see a nest. So you can see that fluffy mound of sand right in the middle of her track, kind of on the left side of the picture there. And that would be the area that we would mark the eggs, or somewhere in there. I don't know where, they're in there somewhere. But this is indicative to us that the turtle nested. So you can see the difference between these two tracks. Again, sometimes it's a little tricky for us to know exactly what the turtle did. But our team is very highly trained to know what they're doing. So if you guys see any crawls like this on the beach that are not marked yet, have no fear. Our team is probably just down the beach, marking some other nests or checking on something else, and they'll be there momentarily. We do get a lot of phone calls about people telling us that we missed a nest or something isn't marked, but trust me when I tell you, our surveyors are highly trained and they know exactly what they're looking for. So have no fear. Sea Turtle Conservation Program is here. So that's what we're looking for when we are surveying the beach for turtle activity. So we mark every single nest that's laid on Broward's beaches. And here's just a really quick laundry list of fun sea turtle nest facts for you. There's about 100 eggs in every single nest, give or take, depending on species, but about 100 on average. The eggs are buried 2 feet deep or deeper in the sand. Again, that's dependent on the species. Obviously, leatherback turtles, because they're bigger, will lay a deeper nest, but on average about 2 feet deep. One turtle can lay up to 7 nests, but I've even seen turtles lay more than 7 nests in one season. So a lot of people think that one sea turtle will come up and lay one nest and that's all she does all season. Nope. she will lay multiple nests in one season, which is pretty cool. I mentioned this earlier, but I'll repeat it here again. The eggs take about 2 months until they hatch. So that is our incubation time, is about 2 months. And a fun fact is that sea turtles return to the same area where they hatched to lay their own nests. And we call this natal homing. So they don't return to the exact same beach or the exact same spot on the sand, because that wouldn't be very effective, right? Because beaches change, things change, in the world, but they do come back to the same area. So our Broward turtles, our South Florida turtles, I should say, are coming back to South Florida to nest. So that means that the turtles that are nesting here today probably hatched from either Broward's beaches, maybe Miami-Dade beaches, maybe even Palm Beach County beaches 30 years ago, perhaps. That's where they hatched from. And the hatchlings that are hatching today are going to be nesting on these beaches in 25 to 30 years. So that's pretty cool. I think it's cool anyway. So natal homing, it's a really unique thing that these sea turtles do. And I just think it's so cool. I get lost when I go, too far up 95 and I don't know where I am. I don't know what exit I have to take, but these turtles, they traverse the entire ocean and they can make their way back to the same areas where they hatched 30 years ago. I think that's incredible. So really cool. Like I said, very instinctive, really good at being sea turtles. So keep that in mind as we continue. Another cool fact that I want to share with you is that sea turtles undergo this phenomenon called temperature sex determination, or TSD. And what that means is that when the eggs are laid in the ground, when mama turtle is laying the eggs, those eggs do not have X and Y chromosomes to dictate whether the single egg will be male or female. Instead, as the eggs develop through time around that, over that 2-month mark, depending on the sand temperature, the eggs will either be male or female. And so this graph kind of breaks it down for you what happens. So on the x-axis, the horizontal axis, we have increasing temperature from left to right. On the y-axis, or the vertical axis, we have percent female. So as we increase the temperature, as we move to the right on this graph, the percent female goes up until we reach a mixture of male and female turtles, until we reach a critical temperature where the nest will be 100% female. And it depends on the species, which temperature that is. I think this might be loggerheads, but I can't remember. But there is a temperature where all of the eggs will be female. So warmer temperatures will produce female turtles and cooler temperatures will produce male turtles. And yes, there can be a mix in one nest. Remember, these eggs are 2 feet deep. So the eggs on the top could be a little warmer than the ones on the bottom. If a nest is shaded or receiving a little bit of washover from the waves, it could, create some variation within that nest. But warmer temperatures, female turtles; cooler temperatures, male turtles. So to help you remember, we like to say hot chicks and cool dudes. So keep that in mind. And yeah, sea turtles are very unique, exhibiting this phenomenon. It's pretty cool stuff, but it's something that we're keeping an eye on as conservation biologists, because as you know, the Earth is not getting any colder anytime soon. And so scientists are keeping an eye on this. And, they're trying to see if there's anything going on that's going to affect the turtles in the long term. So people are keeping an eye on this. Don't worry. All right, so after the nest is marked and after it hatches, and then we've hopefully got a mixture of boy and girl sea turtles running out to sea, our biologists can see that the nest has hatched. We see the little tiny flipper tracks going out to sea. And then we go back and we evaluate the nest after about 3 days. We give everybody enough time to come up on their own. We don't want to disturb anything if we can help it. But we come back and we evaluate the nest, because not only is it important that we know how many nests were laid, it's important to know if that nest was successful. So we come back in, we count the number of hatched eggs, the number of unhatched eggs, and sometimes we find small hatchlings still in the nest. They just missed the memo with their siblings and didn't make it out with the rest of them. So with those turtles, what we do is we bring them back to the office with us. We keep them nice and safe and nice and warm for the day so they can sleep. And then at night, we bring them to the beach and release them safely. We do have public programs where we take people out to watch staff release the turtles, because remember, we have the permits, so we can't hand anybody the turtles, but the participants stand in a U shape behind us. and they watch us release the turtles, which is really, really fun. So those are our hatchling release programs. So if you're interested in those, you can look us up on Facebook, the Broward County Sea Turtle Conservation Program, and it's under our events page if you guys are interested in those. I think those programs run through August. So check that out if you are interested. Super fun programs. All right, so we've been talking about a lot of happy stuff, and I love happy stuff, but now we have to talk about some bad stuff, unfortunately. So let's talk a little bit about some threats to sea turtles. So number one, plastic and balloons. So again, I know the audience I'm talking to. I know I don't have to tell you guys not to release balloons and not to use plastic bags. So we're going to go through this kind of quickly, but it is important to know that it's up to us to educate other people who might not be as attuned to the environment as we are, right? So some people might not realize that releasing that balloon could cause harm to a sea turtle or, you know, a pelican or another animal that's out there in the environment. They don't think about it. So it's up to us to educate everybody else. And you guys can see why plastic and balloons can be so detrimental to sea turtles, because remember, one of their favorite foods is jellyfish. And so balloons with strings hanging down off of them, or a plastic bag that's just kind of floating in the surf, they look just like jellyfish to hungry sea turtles. And that's where they can get in a lot of trouble. So it's really up to us to keep these things out of the environment. Remember, those turtles have teeny tiny brains and they are very instinctive animals. And so they see something that looks like food, they will eat it, and then they can get sick. And we don't want to talk about what else can happen. But again, educate people, you guys, the best you can. I know you guys are stewards for our environment and for our animals. And so just keep doing what you're doing, keep educating, because that's the way that we get word out about these things. I also want to talk about light pollution because this is a part of my job that's really integral to the environment as a whole as well. So light pollution, you know, in summary, it's basically misdirected light, light that's shining up into the sky instead of down on the ground where we need it. And light pollution can affect sea turtles. It can affect birds, insects. It can even affect us as humans. It can mess with our circadian rhythm. It can do a lot of really bad things to us too. And a lot of people don't realize that. So we have to reduce light pollution in order to help ourselves and also to help the environment. So let's talk a little bit about how light pollution and artificial lighting can affect sea turtles. So jump in your time machines with me. Go back 100 million years ago when those sea turtles were roaming around right before the dinosaurs were around, maybe with some of the dinosaurs eventually. So we're on a nesting beach 100 million years ago. We have the bright moon and the stars reflecting off of the ocean water, the white caps of the waves. Can you hear the ocean? I can. All right. Compare that to the dark dune that's behind us. Okay, so these sea turtles, when they hatch, they were attuned to go directly to the moon and the stars, which would bring them into the ocean. That was 100 million years ago. Fast forward to present day, we now have kind of an opposite situation going on. We have development that's very close to the beach. With development comes lighting, right? Because we need light for safety for humans, which is important still, and we'll talk about that in a second. But now land is brighter than the ocean. And unfortunately, sometimes these sea turtles get confused because, again, they're very instinctive and they'll crawl the wrong way on the beach. So that's where our volunteer groups come into play. They're permitted to be out there to make sure that these turtles go to the ocean. If not, they're allowed to intervene if needed. But it's up to us to correct this and to find that happy medium. But let's look and see what it looks like for us when we arrive in the morning when we're doing our survey. So the picture on the left is what we call properly oriented hatch out, where you can see all those little tiny tracks going straight out into out to the water. That's really good. That's what we want to see. The picture on the right is what we don't want to see. This is what we call a disorientation. And this is when all of those little tracks just went all over the beach. So these poor turtles didn't know which way they were supposed to go. This wastes energy for them. It puts them at risk of dehydration, higher risk of predation. You know, they could accidentally cross into a street. They can go into someone's swimming pool. It's really bad for these turtles to be all over the beach and not in the ocean. So this is what we want to avoid happening. And how do we do that? Well, luckily for us, there is turtle-friendly lighting. So turtle-friendly lighting is kind of like the happy medium between having artificial light at night for human safety, but having that light be as minimally impactful as we can make it. It's not completely unimpactful. It still has, it can still impact the turtles if it's not implemented correctly, but it's minimizing it. Okay, so we have 3 golden rules for turtle-friendly lighting. Rule number 1 is to keep it low. And this rule refers to the fixture height and the lumens, or the amount of light that that fixture is putting out. So in practice, this is what that looks like. Instead of a tall pole fixture that's putting out a lot of light, what we want to do is put in lower level bollards that are only about 3 feet high, putting out just enough light as we need to light something like this pathway. Okay, so picture on the top, no good. Picture on the bottom, much better, much more friendly for the turtles, turtle-friendly lighting. All right, so keeping it low. Rule number 2 is to keep it shielded. And this refers to making the fixture downward directed. Remember, because our hazards are going to be on the ground, trip hazards, things like that. And we shouldn't be able to see the point source of light. So if we're installing a light, this is what keeping it shielded might look like. Instead of this jelly jar style fixture that has, the bulb exposed with the glass around it, instead what we want to do is use a downward directed canister light where we cannot see the light bulb and that light is pointed directly down where we need it to go, right? So the light on the top will shine more light into our eyes and actually make it more difficult to see. All right, so we want to keep it low and we want to keep it shielded. Rule number 3 of turtle-friendly lighting is to keep it long, and that refers to the wavelength of the light. And I won't bore you guys by going into the electromagnetic spectrum. I do that with the science kids when I'm in schools, okay? But in a nutshell, long wavelength lights are amber or red in color, and LED is the best one that you can use because it's narrow band. It emits a very specific wavelength of color. It doesn't have any other colors mixed in, and I'm not talking about filters or any kind of covering. We want the bulb itself to be an amber or red LED. That's the key. So if we're looking at fixtures, right, we have this canister fixture, that's really good. But if we're looking for turtle-friendly lighting, instead of a white light in a canister fixture, we want to use something that's amber in color, okay, just like the picture on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. So that's our turtle-friendly lighting. So really quickly, let me just go back one slide. So turtle-friendly lighting, as I mentioned, light pollution is detrimental to things like turtles. It's also detrimental to things like insects. And so they actually call this kind of lighting wildlife friendly lighting because it's good for all types of wildlife. So if you guys are living in an area where you have a natural area near you, wildlife friendly or turtle friendly lighting is still going to be good for you, for that wildlife area. So it's good for insects, birds, sea turtles, and even humans. So just keep that in mind as you're going through life. All right, so Broward County is taking steps to reduce artificial light along the coast. We have our beach lighting management plan that was implemented in 1997, and that document gave municipalities the tools, procedures, and strategies to reduce light in their area. We followed that up with a modification of the county land use plan, which required all coastal municipalities to enforce and enact their own lighting ordinances for sea turtle protection. Every coastal municipality now has one of those ordinances, which is really good. They all vary in language a little bit, but in a nutshell, they all state that beachfront lighting has to be turned off during nesting season, unless it's turtle-friendly lighting. Turtle-friendly lighting, though, remember, is amber or red in color, and it's shielded. So we really shouldn't be able to see it along the coast. So anything that's white, unshielded, even blue and green, that's not allowed anymore. So the Broward County Sea Turtle Conservation Program conducts monthly lighting surveys during sea turtle nesting season to aid local code enforcement in getting these lights compliant under their ordinances. So we're out there every single month documenting lighting and sending it to code enforcement to help them conduct outreach to people and help them get people on the turtle-friendly lighting track. All right, so another laundry list of things for you guys. And again, I know my audience, I know hopefully none of this is new to you, but just a quick list of things you guys can do to help. And really, I think the last one is the most important. So let's maybe start there, right? Educating others. I mentioned this earlier. please, I challenge you to go home today, call your family, call your friends. If you're out to lunch with somebody this weekend, give them a couple of these tips as to how they can help sea turtles in their everyday life. So I challenge each one of you to talk to 5 people, in the next couple of days and share with them some things that you might have learned today, or maybe things that you already knew that I reiterated today. So again, using those reusable shopping bags and refillable water bottles and coffee mugs, not releasing balloons, even turning off lights at home when you're not in a room can help sea turtles, believe it or not. Even if you don't live on the beach, that excess light that's going out your window is contributing to what's called sky glow, which is, believe it or not, visible from the beach and can be a problem for sea turtles. It's also going to save you energy and some money. Something else that I recently added to this presentation is knocking down sandcastles and filling in holes, which is really important. And a lot of people don't think about it. But remember, you guys, sea turtles, the hatchlings, I don't think I mentioned to you how small they actually are. They fit in the palm of your hand. They are so tiny when they are hatched. I know that the adults can grow to be 3, 4, 5, 6 feet long, but the hatchlings are mere inches big. They are so tiny. So a deep sandcastle with a big moat all around it, that can be an obstacle for a hatchling. So knock down those sandcastles. If you're, if your kids or your grandkids are burying somebody in the sand when they're out at the beach, just make sure that they're filling in that hole whenever they're done. Anything we can do to make these turtles' journey a little bit easier, that's what we want to do. Beach cleanups is another really good way to help. We have our International Coastal Cleanup coming up very quickly. It's going to be September 17th this year. We're going to be at various sites on the beach. It's a Saturday from 9 to 12, so come out and see us if you guys want to help us clean the beach and get some of that trash off the beach. Skipping the straw is another good way to help. And like I already mentioned, educate others. So go tell 5 of your friends something you learned today. All right, I'm going to wrap this up with some phone numbers that you guys can write down or program into your phone. If you guys are ever out on the beach, or if you guys get a call at the Wildlife Center about a sea turtle that's sick or injured, please have these numbers handy. The Broward County Sea Turtle Conservation Program hotline, that's the 954 number on your screen. Give us a call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, because injured turtles, we've had injured turtles on holidays, we get them on weekends, any time of the year, any time of the day. So if you guys see something that doesn't look quite right and you think a turtle might be in trouble, give us a call and we'll talk you through it. Same goes for if someone hooks a turtle at a pier by accident, when they're fishing, they're not going to get in trouble. Just give us a call and we can talk you through the steps to get that turtle safely to a rehabilitation center. We don't want people just cutting that line. We want that turtle to go to a rehabilitation center to make sure that it's okay. The number on the bottom there is the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission hotline. That's good for any injured wildlife across the state. So if you guys are vacationing on the West Coast and you see an injured sea turtle, you can call FWC over there. Or if you guys see another injured wildlife that you guys can't take at the Wildlife Center, you can give FWC a call. All right. So that's it for me, you guys. Thank you again so much to everybody at the Wildlife Center for organizing this presentation and this series. I think you guys are doing such phenomenal work. Please keep it up. It's up to all of us, to help these critters who can't help themselves out there in this big bad world. So thank you to all of you for what you do. If you have questions, I think we have some time for questions now. But if you can't think of one right now and you have one later, or if you just want to give me a call if you have other questions, that's my contact info, my email address, my phone number. Let me know if you guys have other turtle questions in the future. But for now, thank you. And if we have time for questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, you can feel free to unmute or you can put it in the chat and I can read them out loud. But that was awesome. Wow, so much amazing information. And it was easy to digest too, which I think is nice, especially when we have so much information packed into a short amount of time. But yeah, super awesome. And we actually just solidified our beach cleanup for the year. So we'll be doing one in November because we're trying to fall with the migratory bird season. So same concept, we get a lot of, birds that are, during their migration, they have to stop by and they'll, for some reason, get injured with a lot of hook and, fishing line injuries. So we try and prevent that from happening by removing, a lot of the pollution out there. So we'll, keep up the work, after you guys do yours in September, we'll, kind of go off and keep cleaning things up. So
Excellent.
we'll be doing
Yeah,
that
that's
in November.
definitely good to know. Awesome to hear.
Yeah. All right. Well, if no one has any questions, thank you again, Stephanie. I truly do appreciate it.
You're
And we are
welcome.
big fans of your work. We're here if you ever need us. And thank you to everyone who came. I appreciate everything. So I'm going to stop recording and then we'll be good to